symphonic dances, it's just an incredible piece. Rachmaninoff, his harmonic vocabulary he's exploring new things, and it's so rich. I would have loved to have been there when he played it with Horowitz. By that time, Rachmaninoff had moved from New York City to Beverly Hills, and so their work was first played in Beverly Hills at a private party. And Horowitz and Rachmaninoff were supposed to record it, but unfortunately, Rachmaninoff died before that happened.
I think it's a good example of, here's a work, the Symphonic Dances of Rachmaninoff from 1940, that are now certainly standard orchestral music. Most people are familiar with this through the orchestral performances. It's not often that you get to hear the two-piano version, which lived in a parallel world. But I think it's a really fine example of how, at his core, Rachmaninoff was a pianist. He thought through his musical concepts through the piano. It shouldn't be a surprise that the symphonic dances jump off the page as two-piano music.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I think that we've come to think that it's the better version.
And why? Because there's so much more freedom. Because the piece, when you listen to Rachmaninoff play, he used to always say, all my pieces have a point. There was a story once he came off stage, he was not happy with the performances. I missed the point, and so he missed the point. The point being, all his pieces have this pyramid that they work towards, and I just think the freedom of two pianos, an orchestra can't imitate that.
No, too many people try to move through that.
And I told Pat I found this video, it's been around for a while, that he made. He was playing the symphonic dances for Eugene Ormandy, who was going to premiere the work with orchestra, the Philadelphia Orchestra. And Rachmaninoff is playing the parts and singing along, which is wonderful. But again, you hear the freedom that he played it with. It's available on YouTube. Just Google Rachmaninoff playing his symphonic dances for Eugene Ormandy.
We live in a really, I think, wonderful era when there's now a set of technologies that allow us to reproduce old recordings and bring them to our awareness now of how somebody like Rachmaninoff actually thought about playing his own music. Whether it's the symphonic dances as he's pitching it to Ormandy, or there are some CDs that have been reproduced from recordings that he actually made, and what you come away with is, first of all, fabulous technique, but he's thinking structurally about the music, and so it's not metronomic. When you hear him play, what you're hearing is a composer's mind with a fabulous pianist technique. And it lifts off the page in a way that you wouldn't expect it to. If you just looked at the score, you wouldn't know how much focus there is on the structure and the concept of, this arc or that arc, and how that's what your technique is about. And it's not just playing, line after line, on the score.
Limits of notation, he goes beyond. A composer can only notate so much of what his intentions are, and Rachmaninoff, when he plays it, he shows his intentions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very, very amazing, and I think it kind of changes your perspective, because you suddenly feel like, oh, that's the point. We don't have to just do it metronomically. This is about showing the idea, or the color, to create a special atmosphere for something. Yeah. Like in the the first movement of the symphonic dances in the B section. You have this kind of retrospective to old Russia. That's the way I think about it. This kind of almost remorse for the old country that comes through in this very simple in a way melody, but to pull it out and then you can almost hear the balalaikas playing, the strumming through some of these chords and so on.
And all the reference to bells, which are in a lot of his music, And you go visit his grandfather. His grandfather lived near a church, and he remembers those bells, and you hear them throughout all his music. Yeah.
And of course, the other really big theme that really plows through the third movement is the Dies Irae from the Mass. Of course, he was raised in the Russian Orthodox Church, and so you have the Dies Irae, which is one of the oldest parts of the Catholic Mass. But it's a theme that he incorporates in a lot of works. But here, I think it's particularly powerful because there's so many moments where we have the ringing of the bells and so on, and it all comes crashing down into the Dies Irae at the end of the third movement. And it's, I think, very masterful kind of writing.
And he reharmonizes it every time. That's the magic. I mean, even in his variations for piano and orchestra, the Rachmaninov, the Paganini variations, the harmonization of the Dies Irae is I mean, it's beautiful. But in the symphonic dances, it becomes much more demonic. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But the way that the second movement of the symphonic dances works here, you have this the most beautiful waltz, and yet it has kind of a melancholy aspect to it too. But it's one of those themes for me that becomes the earworm that you just can't get it out of your head. It just sort of keeps going around.
It haunts you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, to try to capture that old Victorian style of the waltz and fold it into that Russian personality, I think that's the mastery of that particular movement.
Pat and I worked very hard on this piece. It's a difficult piece. Fingering is so important. I don't know how many times I've changed fingering. I'm sure you have too.
Oh no, I did it only first.
Yeah, I mean, I tell my students, if the passage is still giving you trouble, it's the fingering. And I would never insist on using, I would give them what I thought was a workable fingering, but I would never insist on that they use it because everybody's hand's different. You have to find what works for you. And the only way to do that is to keep experimenting until, why didn't I think of this earlier? You have so many choices with fingering.
Well, and not only that, but as you move into the musicality of the work, then your ideas then start to influence how are you going to play it.
Right.
So how you want to convey to the audience what this passage is about will dictate how you're going to finger it.
Right. And just like we analyze the music harmonically and all that, you have to analyze it technically. What kind of technical fingering, whether it's fingering, use of the wrist, close fingers, flat fingers, whatever. It's what serves the musical cause that you're looking for.
Which is the great exploration of being a pianist, because as you move more deeply into the music, for me, the first thing I want to do is try to play the thing. Oh, excuse me. To play it. To play it. And so just to try to get it in my head as to what is it I'm trying to get at musically. So the initial fingering for me is just that. It's the entrance to being able to play it and get an impression of what it is. But then after that, that's when you start to change things around, and that's a very rewarding experience for me. I love that because it's like being in a laboratory, you know? You're just sort of tweaking here and tweaking there, and that freedom to experiment with the instrument is, I think, an essential thing that students sometimes don't realize. You know, they don't have to be dogmatic about how they go about playing something. You know, and for me, I have a small hand, so there are places where, you know, I have to subdivide into putting things in my right hand or my left hand that actually aren't laid out on the page that way in order to make everything happen.
Especially with Rachmaninoff, because he has such enormous hands. Mm-hmm. And even Horowitz, when he played the third concerto with Rachmaninoff in the basement at Steinway Hall, Horowitz said, "Is it okay? I'm going to put this over here." So he said, "Sure."
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
And then after
whatever it takes.
Right. And after they went through the whole concerto, Rachmaninoff said, "You play better than me, Dot," which was the supreme compliment for Horowitz. Yeah. Anyway, it's a fabulous work, and we've enjoyed putting it together. And we look forward to some more performances of it.
Yeah, it's a big audience pleaser.